So welcome. This is the Vision Gap show, and we're here for our second episode. I'm Tony Zayas, VP of Growth at Incivia, and I'm joined by
Andy Helko, CEO of Incivia.
Awesome. So
yeah,
excited to be back again, Andy. This
I know.
Is very cool.
Show number 2 for the Vision Gap.
Number 2.
This will be good. We're diving in a little bit deeper.
Yep.
Which I enjoy doing is taking a big topic that we're talking about and just going in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so we're talking brand strategy, and this is a fascinating topic to me. Learning a lot going through this, just hearing about your approach and really cool stuff. And a really good conversation last week. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you guys to go to thevisiongap.com.
Yeah.
There's a
download the
there.
white
You
paper.
can watch our last episode. Yeah. As we go, guys, I keep comments here, and I can look at, if they're coming in. So if you have questions, feedback, feel free to do that. We can pick them up live, or we'll get back to them if you leave them wherever you're at, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, etc. But last time, I guess we'll recap a little bit what we're talking about with Vision Gap, and then we're going to dive in deeper into brand strategy.
Well, last time we were talking about Vision Gap and brand strategy. Today we're even going to dive even deeper down into like target audiences and how you really focus your business. But Vision Gap, for all of you that are out there, it's the concept that we have that really, visionaries, leadership teams have a vision in their head of where they want their organization to go, but there's all these gaps along the way that stop them from achieving breakthrough growth. And really it's about identifying and then defining, articulating, and communicating the different elements of your vision so that you can fill those gaps and really achieve that breakthrough growth. One of the big topics within vision is brand, and so that's really over the next couple of weeks what we're focused on is brand and all the different elements that we have of that.
Very good. So today the element that we'll be diving into is identifying target audience.
Yeah. And I won't go into this a lot, but we talked about this a little bit last time, is really, the 6 elements that we talk about when we're looking at brand strategy. We've got target audiences, value propositions, brand voice, positioning statements, key messages, and your brand identity. So those are the 6 things over the next couple weeks that we're really going to be diving into. Yeah. And today, it's all about that target audience stuff.
So this should be encouraging to some of those of you that are out there who have a hard time kind of picking that target audience. I think there's a lot of people who have an existing business, not to even mention people who are starting one, that really know that they're just broadcasting a general message, and they know that there are certain different slices of that audience that they can really dive into. But a lot of times it's just a lack of know-how, how to identify,
how do you do it?
And then go after, evaluate. That's a big part of this as well.
Well, the big thing that I see, so I work with a lot of companies, and there is just this fear of narrowing in, because you're afraid that you're going to lose a potential opportunity, or that there's a market that you're not going to understand. Especially if you're a startup or you're in the SaaS space, you think, hey, I want to follow the opportunities, which makes sense. But if you're too wide open, it really hurts you in a bad way, because you're not speaking specifically to certain audiences. You're not tying everything, into one focused perspective. And then most of all, you have limited time and limited money. The last thing you want to do is spread yourself so thin that to any specific audience or a group of audiences, you really can't invest the time and money to really get the traction and the depth with that audience to really move the business forward. And so it's a huge thing, and it's hard for a lot of business owners to really narrow down. It's amazing when I go through the strategic consulting stuff that how many people fight against it. Like, no, let's just keep adding some more industries. Let's keep adding these personas, and they just really want to target everybody.
And I think the big concern there is, you already touched on it, but losing out on opportunity.
Right.
And we have an example, right? An RFP came through, state of Ohio, looks like a really big project.
Yeah.
And I responded to you today. I don't even know if you saw the email yet, but I said, we don't want to do it, right? We've been getting more and more focused on our audience, and what this is going to do is draw resources away from us going all in towards our target, and this is us stepping back and being broader and a lot of potential. But
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
At the end of the day, it's not worth it.
That's what you want to do. I mean, I really feel like if you narrow yourself down, not only can you put that time and budget into it, but you can speak very specifically to those audiences.
Yeah.
You can really push them through each stage of your brand and marketing. And so we're talking a lot about brand, but target audiences starts with brand because we want to speak to those, but it really pushes forward into our marketing strategy, which comes later, to really say, okay, let's not put the effort into these places that we shouldn't. And so that's a big piece. So I'll just talk a little bit about target audiences. You know, what we talk about is really just prioritizing. One thing that I do talk to other business owners about to help them through this process is say, you don't have to take a ton of business, you know, industries or targets off of the table. We just have to prioritize them. And so that's really what it's about, is how do we create, you know, really a hierarchy to the people that we want to talk to and target. And so that's really what our process is about, and what we'll be talking about, so that someone could actually dig in and figure out how to do it themselves.
Yeah, and just to mention along that line, that kind of feels like magic going through that process.
Yeah.
Like as you work, you know, in the consulting, as you go through that process, and just to mentally go through, and you have your list of different, you know, target audiences, different verticals, but like you said, the prioritization, understanding which ones are weighted, more opportunity, more competition, and just laying that out, and then having a sense of, that's how we go about it. It feels, to me, when we went through it, it felt really good to go through that, for the ideas to be validated with some numbers and all that.
Well, I think the toughest thing for people is whenever they're thinking about strategic stuff, sitting with a blank sheet of paper or a blank whiteboard and saying, let's figure this out is really hard. And so, you know, that's why you really have to look at exercises and tools that help you break the problem apart and take logical, progressive steps to make smart decisions about the business. And that's really what we're going to dive into, is how do you go through some of those steps to make that happen.
Very good.
So, you know, I think the first place that we typically start with is, you know, how do you determine your different audience groups? Hopefully the people out there can see this, but they might not be able to. It's a little blown out. But basically, there's 4 different types of groups that we tend to look at, by industry, by department, by persona, and by region. And so really what this is about is that B2B businesses tend to look at industry and department. So an industry might be financial services, manufacturing, government, whatever that might be, or a department could be human resources, accounting and finance, operations, all of those different ones. And typically, you know, when we're sitting down, we say, okay, who do we want to target? We're either saying something like, well, let's look at financial services versus manufacturing versus professional services, and there are literally hundreds of these categories. Or potentially, let's look at very specific departments. We really want to go after HR, or we want to go after operations. And sometimes it's even combining those. But what we want to do is start out by creating a group, and usually it's, let's, as a group of leaders, pick the top 10 to 15 that we at least want to start as our minimum list, because that's easy to do, and create our basic audience groups. And then if you're on the B2B side, there's another way to look at it, is you can typically see persona and region. So a persona, if I'm a B2C business and I'm selling to consumers, I might look at age, income, you know, some of these other factors to say, okay, I really want to go after, you know, single males because that's what my product is geared towards, or I want to go after highly educated, you know, economically well-off personas, or regions where you're really looking at, is it specific areas, what's the population density, what's the economic level, and so you're really looking at regions. So there's a couple different ways based on your type of business that you can create different audience groups, at least to start with.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And just what you're talking about, the demographics, thinking a lot of companies get to define those at the point of, when they start running their ads or something,
Right.
right? And there's so much to that point, and I know data is another topic that we're going to get to down
Totally.
the road, but there's so much available now that's easily accessible to be able to really nicely define those audiences. So when you're doing your strategy, you're doing your planning, there's a ton of stuff available to help you make that a little bit easier
Yeah.
and really know where to focus.
I
where
mean, you
that
go out and
opportunity
find a
lies.
lot of information about
Mhm.
these different markets that can help you at least
Yeah.
get some idea. But the key is starting somewhere, and to your point, I think doing it at this brand stage,
Mhm.
the reason we do it here is, yeah, it impacts marketing, but we want to start it here so that we can think about our messaging to the marketplace, which is what brand is all about. It's developing a position that's unique to the marketplace. And if we don't know who we're focused on, how can we create that unique
Yeah,
position?
absolutely.
So the next piece that I really like is evaluating the audiences. So it's really about this process of how do we figure out to evaluate. So if we've got our list of 10 different industries that we're focused on,
Yep.
what do we actually use to measure whether we should be prioritizing them? And so there's 5 different pieces that I typically look at, when we're doing this, and we basically rank them on you can do a stoplight where it's red, green, yellow,
Yeah.
or you can do a 1 to 5 ranking, but really what you want to do is each of them look and see the strength of your organization for that industry. So as an example, the 5 that we look at are: 1, opportunity. How big is the audience, and is it growing or contracting? So we just want to know and rank our opportunity for that industry. So if it's financial services right now, is that a big industry? Is it something that's growing? You'll look at something like construction right now.
Mhm.
That's expanding, but if we go into a recession, that might change.
Yeah.
And so we really want to look at what's the opportunity, how big is it, and whether that's looking at demographics and we're on the persona side, or if that's on an industry side, we can judge opportunity. Second is demand. How hungry is the audience for the offering? As a great example, we work with a lot of cybersecurity companies,
Mhm.
and so what you do is cybersecurity right now for financial services, for healthcare, there is high demand.
Yeah.
But if you go to professional services like accountants and lawyers, the demand is going to be significantly lower than those industries. So we want to look at opportunity, how big is the market, and the demand, how hungry is that market for your specific offering. Third, we want to look at competition. So how full is it, a red ocean where there's
Yeah.
a lot of people out there and there's a ton of competition, and we have to fight for every single project or job or gaining a customer? And so really trying to just understand, is there a high barrier of entry? Is it cutthroat? And just how much competition there is. And so those 3 start off the basis. It's opportunity, how big is the market? Demand, how hungry are they? And then competition, how hard is it going to be to get in there and fight for things? The last 2 are interesting, is that we're really looking internal. First, experience.
Yeah.
So how much experience do we have in that industry? Have we been working in that industry for years, or have we, or do we already, if it's a persona, do we already have thousands of customers? What's our level of experience? And then finally, specialization. How unique is what we have to that audience? So as an example, if we're working with a cybersecurity company, to use that example again, it's, does our offering specifically fit for financial services because we have very unique integrations and
Yeah.
certifications? Or on the healthcare side, are we HIPAA certified and we've got unique specializations and maybe certain features for our product or services that are really specialized towards that? And so there's a big difference between experience, how long you've been doing it, and is what you do very specialized for it. And if you rank across these 5 factors and you really look at them, this is what is the exercise that helps you prioritize these industries or audiences
Yeah.
for your business.
And typically, do you find that after you go through these and you rank them, there's some clear-cut winners, losers, and then kind of the middle ground?
It definitely depends on business. It's been funny as I go through it. I think the reality is that if you're not honest and you're not tough about some of these things,
Yeah.
you're going to end up where they're all very close. But if you're very honest with yourself, especially on experience and specialization, it's easy for us to say, oh, well, experience, I've had 3 or 4 clients. Well, I don't know if that's truly experience in it versus someone that's maybe been doing something in that industry or focused on that group for 10 years and has 1,000 clients. Same thing with specialization. It's not just one little thing, it's how specialized are you. You know, if you have one little certification or one person on your team, that's very different than your entire organization is focused on healthcare. And same thing with the rest is competition, demand, being honest with ourselves. And on opportunity and demand, a lot of times it's going out and looking at external data and information to understand what's the truth about the market.
I was just going to ask, so how do you remove kind of the biases that I'm going to say, oh yeah, the market's hungry for this, they want it. How do we, and so data is the answer to that.
I mean, I think data is the answer. You know, we go out and there's tons of data out there, analytics, research and studies, you know, and even professionals that you hire in that can help you either survey the market or look at other aspects to make sure that you're looking at these things correctly.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then really the key is, so the next piece is that we're mapping these different industries, and this kind of shows you, and hopefully these guys can see a little bit of it, and if they can't, they can ask us for the white paper, and it's going to be on our website. But basically what you can see is if you're ranking higher on your diagram for opportunity and demand, you just have a bigger surface area. And so if we have a bigger surface area for something like financial services, we want to increase our budget, effort, and focus on that industry. Versus maybe in manufacturing, we have low specialization, kind of low opportunity, medium demand. Maybe we've got some good experience, but overall the surface area is very low or very small, and so we want to decrease our effort. And when you look at those, if you choose those first 10 audiences and you run through this exercise, you should have some clarity on, okay, these are the ones with the greatest surface area, I really need to prioritize them, and these are ones with the least that I need to maybe back off of, and we'll talk in a second how you can even prioritize from there.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this is a nice model. And then just the final piece of this is really looking at bad audiences. One of the things I think companies don't do is sit down and say who's not right for us. And that could be they're not profitable, they just don't fit our services. You know, for us, if we're trying to sell higher end consulting, nonprofits or others might not be the right fit. You don't know what the right thing is, but you really want to look at who's not the right customer and put those on a list. Most companies don't sit down and write that stuff down. And it is important because you want your entire team to understand, you know, who should we be working with and who shouldn't we.
Absolutely. So the bad audiences, that one's tough, right? It's kind of scary to say, yep, let's cross this one off. And again, it's to that point that we made earlier of kind of the fear of like you want to stay broader and more general because you feel like you're giving up on opportunity if you're doing that.
Well, it's funny, you know, I was working with a client and we went through this exercise and we determined a bad audience, and they actually had been right on the cusp of putting down $10,000 to go to a trade show for an audience that they determined as a bad audience. You know, that's money right there that all of a sudden we're reallocating to our top priority audience, and really getting the traction that we need. And it's easy when we haven't gone through the exercise. We haven't prioritized our audiences. You know, we haven't determined bad audiences. It's easy for us to make decisions to say, oh yeah, let's go to that conference. It might be a good opportunity and everybody just kind of agrees. But if we've got a list and we know this is what it is, we can just make smarter and quicker decisions within our business.
Absolutely. I think that's why this is so important to do this up front, do the planning. Again, we talked, I think last week, we talked about just business planning. It's something that I think most businesses would love to do more of it. They unfortunately just don't get around to it at times. And
it's a common problem. We're working in our business instead of on it. But, you know, I mean, I really think just spending a little bit of time, and especially if you're using exercises and systems that can move you through the process faster and smarter, you know, then we've got it and we can make better decisions every day. And even if we're working in our business, we've got some guide rails, you know, bumper bowling, if you will. And then really just kind of the last piece is I talked about prioritizing audiences. So now, once we've done this and we did that area guide for each of our different groups, what we can actually do, I like to put them into 3 categories: attack, defend, and retreat. Attack is we're putting our priority on it. Yeah, let's go. Let's put the budget into it. Let's put the effort. Let's attack that industry or market or persona. Then there's defend, where it's really we're going to maintain current efforts, or maybe selectively choose efforts that we put into marketing or branding. And then there's obviously retreat, is we got to reduce our effort. We got to stop spending money on this. We have to stop focusing on it.
That's the trade show, right? The $10,000.
Exactly. And now we're reallocating. And this is a great quick graphic that you can throw out to your organization, say this is what we're focused on. And so if you're in sales, you know that if you're talking to somebody in healthcare, you gotta go hard. And if you're talking to somebody in government, that's not who we want to go after. Marketing can say, oh wow, we're gonna create a lot of content and ads around this. We're not gonna do it around things like this. If you're developing a product, the people in the creating the product roadmap can come in and say, we've got to create some specialized features for healthcare and retail and make sure this works for them. But government, oh, that feature is good for them, but we got to push it off the roadmap. Customer service, all of your different areas can gain some value from understanding prioritization. And that really just, again, I talk about the vision gap, aligning people within an organization and getting everybody on the same page. We're all going towards the same goals. That's the example, is that if every department and every person understands this, we can all act together and be working in step, and that's a powerful thing.
Well, yeah, and that's such a common problem of silos within a business. Decisions are made, and marketing and sales, right? Big one that I've dealt with most of my career is the disconnect that can happen there. But internally in teams, this is huge, just to communicate these different areas of focus, emphasis, retreat, etc. Super important if you're not speaking the same language. So those are the gaps. And
that's the gap. You fill it, and again, the whole process, like I said, you define it, you articulate it, which is helping to understand in like a model, like how are we going to articulate this, which is like a retreat, defend, attack model, and then how do we communicate it? We put it into brand guides, and we put it into intranets and other documents, or we talk about it in meetings. And so now it's really, we identify a gap, which is we don't have prioritized target audiences, which hurts our business in X number of ways. And then, as I said, you want to define, articulate, and communicate it, and that's really what it's about.
So does this have to take a ton of time to go through and kind of?
I don't think that it does. Together? I mean, for us, when we work with clients, this is one exercise of 5 or 6 that happen in a half-day session. Same thing with any organization. What we just talked about, they could literally take what we said and sit down for 2 hours and at least have some better clarity than where they are today.
And allow them to make better decisions.
Much better decisions. So, and that's really what we're about in this whole thing, is how do you as an organization get everybody aligned, make smarter decisions, be efficient about money and time, and just be able to create that path to breakthrough growth, which is what we talk about a lot. Execute.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's all about target audiences today.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
So just want to remind everyone, if you guys have questions, comments, feedback, please let us know. Just wherever you're at, wherever you're seeing this, go ahead and leave your question there for us. We will get back to you. I'm going to take a look to see if we have any that are live right now.
Yeah, and definitely keep tuning in. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis and having shows that, again, we're just talking about target audiences now. Next week, we're going to be diving into, I think, the value propositions, which is one of my favorite and most important ones. Making sure that you can really determine what makes you unique in a marketplace. So I think, again, we said this the other day, but if you watch along for this series, man, are you going to be able to deliver a great brand strategy for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again for everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time. We're going to dive deeper again, talking about value propositions here on the Vision Gap Show. Take care. We will see you next time.
All right, guys, have a great weekend.
Have a happy Labor Day.
Bye bye.